To Afghanistan now, which has been facing decades of economic crisis, which has been compounded by the Taliban's return to power. One of the ways the country has been trying to increase revenues is by mining its gemstones and other minerals. We have a report now from one mine in Goshta in eastern Afghanistan, where jade extraction is helping the local economy.
Afghanistan is one of the poorest countries in the world. But the resources buried across its rocky landscape are estimated to be worth $1 trillion. Resources like these, blocks of jade. The workers and machines deployed at this mine in the eastern Goshta district are helping extract this precious gemstone. The biggest customer of this mine is China, where raw jade is exported.
There are no technicians capable of processing jade for the international market. It's sent from here to China, where it's processed into products for international markets. It's used to make jewellery such as bracelets and rings and so on.
As the Western world cut ties with the Taliban, they have turned to regional countries willing to work with them. China is one of the biggest investors. Russian and Iranian investors have also signed mining licenses.
The extraction, exploration and processing of mines requires a great deal of financial and technical capacity. Afghans do not have such skills, which is why we want to attract foreign investors, because they have the technical experience and financial capacity. So, both Afghans and foreign companies benefit.
The Taliban estimate that 150,000 jobs have been created by the mining sector since 2021, giving employment to Afghans like these working in a goldsmith's workshop in Kabul. Workers here cut, polish, and engrave the gemstones.
We sell rubies, emeralds, jade and so on. We have different customers. The Thais, they mainly buy emeralds and rubies. And we also have American customers.
Some of the international customers can pay $1,000 or $2,000 for a stone to make a ring. A large amount for a country where more than half the population lives in poverty.
And for more on this, I'm now joined by Beenish Javed, who filed that report. Beenish, the kind of mining that you mentioned in your report has been happening for decades. Now, what's changed since the Taliban have taken over?
Yeah, Gerhard, Taliban claim that since they took over Afghanistan, they have signed more than 200 mining contracts worth billions of dollars. Mining contracts to extract and mine, for example, gold, lithium, chromite, and other gemstones. Now, an analysis by Financial Times show that around 80 or so contracting sites have shown signs of development and expansion. World Bank also says that around 7% of expansion in the mining sector has helped in industrial growth in Afghanistan from year 2023 to 2024. Now, the Taliban say that they have improved certain systems. For example, they have cracked down on corruption, they have increased security, they are becoming more transparent, but experts say that while doing so, Taliban are bypassing important technical, financial checks, even environmental checks, and there are also reports of child labor. So in some mines, children as young as 8 are working as miners without any proper machinery and sometimes with no protective gear at all.
Now, you mentioned the security situation. Is that a threat to further develop mining projects?
So overall security situation in Afghanistan has improved. But according to the UN, Afghanistan still is a home to multiple terrorist groups. For example, Islamic State Khorasan still poses the greatest threat to the region. We know that last year attack in Russia, in the concert hall, was claimed by Islamic State Khorasan. Last month, a Chinese mine worker was killed, and Islamic State Khorasan claimed responsibility for that attack. Now, that's an enemy group for the Afghan Taliban, but Afghan Taliban are also accused of working with the militants. For example, the UN report says that Afghan Taliban with Al-Qaeda are working with the militant group Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. That is a group that is waging war against the Pakistani state and has killed thousands of Pakistanis. Now, they have reports and evidence that show that both Taliban and the Al-Qaeda are facilitating cross-border attacks into Pakistan. So security remains still a huge concern.
Very briefly, the Taliban lack international recognition. That's not stopping other countries in the region from buying precious metals, right?
There are three important reasons. Economy, for example, all of these important regional powers like China and Russia are eyeing these resources that are used in, like laptops, computers, mobiles, and many other things. But also they want to take the space that was controlled by the Western world. And lastly, also security is an important issue. They don't want a weak Taliban where militant groups attack these countries.
DW's Beenish, Javed there. Thank you very much, Beenish.
The United Nations has condemned the recent freeze on US aid programs in Afghanistan, saying that it will suspend services that, quote, provide a lifeline for women and girls in crisis living under Taliban rule. Afghanistan is one of the deadliest countries in the world for women to give birth. The UN says the slash in US support will result in around 1,200 maternal deaths and more than 100,000 unintended pregnancies in the next 3 years. The aid cuts will also worsen the country's hunger crisis. Let's just listen to how US President Donald Trump responded to a question on aid from an Afghan journalist on Wednesday.
Do you have any plan to change Afghanistan situation? Are you able to recognize Taliban? Because I'm an Afghan journalist, Afghan suffered woman. Any comment about Afghanistan? What's your future plan for Afghan people, especially Afghanistan?
I have a little hard time understanding you. Where are you from? Oh. Actually, it's a beautiful voice and a beautiful accent. The only problem is I can't understand a word you're saying. But I just say this. Good luck. Live in peace. Go ahead, please.
All right, let's bring in Amin Saikal, Emeritus Professor of Middle Eastern, Central Asian and Islamic Studies at the Australian National University. He's also the author of How to Lose a War, the story of America's intervention in Afghanistan. Mr. Saikal, Donald Trump not saying much there, but he's suspended American aid around the world. How reliant have Afghanistan's Taliban rulers been on foreign aid since they took over the country in 2021?
Well, the Afghan people in general have been very much dependent on foreign aid. And as you know, that's something like at least the 20 million population of the country has been very much dependent on the outside handout. But at the same time, the Taliban is also taken its cut from all the foreign aid, which is currently true. And during the Biden administration, something like about $40 million was poured into the coffers of the Taliban, which benefited this extremist group in order to pursue their very medievalist and indeed, and many people would claim un-Islamic policies in terms of excluding the people, the women of Afghanistan, in other words, half of the population of their basic rights, and also being very discriminatory towards non-Pashtun groups in the country. Afghanistan is a mosaic state. It's composed of numerous ethnic and linguistic groups, and of course the Taliban is only one representing a particular group, that's the Ghazai group among the Pashtuns themselves.
And who is likely to feel the effect of the aid cuts in Afghanistan the most?
Well, obviously, it's good to be the population of Afghanistan, but at the same time, the international pressure has to be really maintained on the Taliban so that they do not really benefit from any aid which really goes to the Afghan people. I think that aid should be really flowed, but in ways which the Taliban do not take a share of that aid. And I think what has happened in the past, I mean, despite the efforts of the United Nations and also other international humanitarian agencies, Taliban has benefited from the foreign aid. And I think from that point of view, I think it's important that on the one hand, the American aid should be resumed to the people of Afghanistan, but it has to really be delivered to the people rather than enabling the Taliban to have a cut for themselves.
Who else can offer aid to Afghanistan?
Well, I mean, the European Union is very important. I think can provide a lot more aid to Afghanistan, and there are international agencies, still humanitarian agencies involved in Afghanistan. The Taliban have been trying to really limit the activities of these agencies as much as possible, but still there are a number of them still active, and I think the European Union can dramatically increase its share, and at the same time, some of the oil-rich Arab states, they can increase their contributions, and instead of really trying to play politics in Afghanistan in terms of exporting their own competitions to that country. I think what they should really try to do is to focus more on the humanitarian aid, but at the same time making sure that the pressure is kept up on the Taliban so that they can really give up this extremist dispositions that they have adopted so far.
We'll leave it there for the moment. Amin Saikal, Emeritus Professor of Middle Eastern, Central Asian and Islamic Studies at the Australian National University. Thank you, sir.